Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right, we're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go! I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
It was a pretty normal Saturday at Levi and Ivy's house. They woke up, had breakfast, and ran into the backyard, hoping to find some great adventures waiting for them. They also were hoping that this day would be a little better than the last few days, when they had been getting in each other's ways. A lot. This was causing little accidents and arguments that made it hard to play together. It was just that once a problem popped up, they didn't know how to solve it and how they could be expected to solve anything when all they were doing was arguing with each other. They would just deny that they had anything to do with the problem or try to hide it altogether. And those kinds of decisions only made the situation worse. Levi, Ivy, you have got to stop arguing, called their mom from the back deck. This is getting to be a real problem. You need to learn to work things out. You need to learn how to apologize to each other and move on. I think they can handle it themselves, added Levi and Ivy's dad, stepping onto the deck. I think they just need a little space and they'll figure it out. But Dad, Ivy took my new roller skates out without asking me and scuffed them all up, said Levi in a huff. No way, that wasn't me, said Ivy, but not very convincingly at all. Ivy, I saw you taking off my skates in the garage and then hiding them behind the Halloween decorations, said Levi, holding up his scuffed skates. Okay, fine. I used your skates, but they were going to get scuffed up eventually, replied Ivy, trying to make a case for herself. But deep down, she knew she was wrong. Ivy, not telling the truth or trying to hide your mistakes will never get you anywhere, said her mom. If you just asked Levi, then you could have roller skated together. Then you would have had nothing to hide. Ivy had a scowl on her face and crossed her arms, closing herself off from the whole conversation. She didn't want to think about that, but she did want to talk about something else. Well, Levi ruined the painting I made for you and Dad, began Ivy. And when I told him to apologize, he just started yelling at me about how it was my fault. It definitely was your fault, said Levi in a loud voice. You left your painting sitting on my chair in the kitchen. Why would you ever leave your painting on something people sit on? Well, why didn't you just look before you sat down? Asked Ivy with a smirk. Because I never would have expected there to be a painting there, replied Levi. What's going to be on my chair next? A bowl of macaroni and cheese? A pile of bricks? A cactus? Well, all of those things seemed a little ridiculous, said Ivy as she rolled her eyes. Thinking a painting on a chair was not such an odd thing. I put it on your chair to hide it from Mom and Dad. Then, may I suggest you pick a better hiding place next time? Levi responded, sounding very annoyed. He then turned around and walked toward the sandbox. Remember, those new sand toys are mine, shouted Ivy at Levi. So look before you step in there. I wouldn't want you breaking them. Oh, I'll make sure I look extra good before taking a step, Ivy. Who knows what could be in here? Maybe another one of your paintings. This seems like a good place to put one, snapped Levi. Hey friends, do you ever find yourself getting in fights with your siblings? I wonder what Levi and Ivy are going to do to get out of this cycle. Let's find out. Wow, you two really need some help working out your problems, said Levi and Ivy's mom again. And that starts with admitting you're wrong, taking responsibility for what you did, and being sensitive to the other person's feelings. But as she talked, it seemed as if she was talking to a tree in the backyard because neither Ivy nor Levi were listening to her at all. And the whole time, all of this arguing and finger pointing was going on, Levi and Ivy's dad just stood there, not saying a word. Well, are you going to say something? Asked Levi and Ivy's mom. I think we need to help them work this out. Like I said before, I think they can handle it themselves, said Levi and Ivy's dad. I think they just need a little space and they'll figure it out. Levi continued to play in the sandbox, and Ivy walked through the garden checking on some flowers she had planted the week before. It was then that she saw something. It was too big to be a butterfly, but too small to be a bird. It seemed to glitter and shimmer in the sun, and as quickly as she saw it, it was gone. "Did anyone else see that?" called out Ivy. "It was a glittery flying thing." Levi and her mom shook their heads. They hadn't seen anything, but Ivy's dad knew just what it was. "I think I did see something," he said with a little smile. At that moment, Levi was building a sandcastle when out of the corner of his eye, he saw something fly by. It also shimmered in the sun and was so fast that it was gone before he could get a good look at it. "I think I might have just seen what Ivy saw," called out Levi as he jumped up from the sandbox. "It was little and shimmery and super fast. It flew away before I could get a really good look, though." "Well, we all know you don't really get a good look at much lately," said Ivy. "Like paintings sitting on chairs, for example." "When are you going to forget about that, Ivy?" said Levi in a huff. "Make another painting and move on." He was clearly not thinking of Ivy's feelings, and at that moment, it was easy for him to do. That was because he felt that Ivy didn't think about his feelings when she scuffed up his new roller skates and then tried to hide it from him. It was then that their dad knew it was time to step in. He knew exactly what was going on and exactly what those shimmery, fast-flying creatures were, and he knew it was time for Levi and Ivy to meet them. "Hey, you two! Come over here." "Like I told your mom, I think you both need to work out your problems together," their dad began. "You both made some mistakes, and you have to learn how to deal with the consequences." What?" asked Ivy. "Consequences," said Ivy's dad, putting his arm around his daughter. "A consequence is what happens immediately after a behavior. Consequences can be both positive and negative, and which one they are is totally up to you." "What do you mean?" asked Levi. "Well, the consequence of sitting on Ivy's painting, whether by accident or not, was her getting upset," said Levi's dad. "You could have helped that situation if you apologized and helped her make another painting, rather than blaming her for where she put it and not taking any responsibility for what happened." "But who puts a painting on a chair?" said Levi, sounding frustrated. He just wasn't getting it yet. "And Ivy, the consequence for using and scuffing up Levi's new roller skates without asking was that he was sad that you messed with his new toy," said Ivy's dad. "You could have helped the situation if you had just apologized rather than trying to hide it and lie to Levi." "But those skates would have gotten scuffed up when he wore them," snapped Ivy. She wasn't getting it yet either. "I kind of figured you would need a little more help," said their dad with a smile as Levi and Ivy's mom just watched, not knowing exactly what he was up to. "I think you two can work this out by yourselves. You just need some space," he said. "Ivy, how about you grab the new wooden boat you made and test it out in the stream? And Levi, you grab your sketchbook to make some nature art. Then both of you can head off into the woods behind our house for a little time together. I think the quiet and the calm of the woods will do both of you some good. And who knows, while you're out there, maybe you can talk through these problems you've been having about taking ownership for your mistakes and making up afterwards. After all, no one is perfect, and once you learn that, I think you'll be happier." Levi and Ivy were not very interested in playing together at the moment, but there was something about their dad's speech, something that made him think he knew better and that they should give it a chance. "Okay, Dad," they both said. Then Ivy ran off to grab her boat in the garage, and Levi ran inside to get a sketchbook and some markers. "What plan do you have worked out?" asked Levi and Ivy's mom to their dad as they waited for Levi and Ivy to return. "Me? No plan at all," answered Levi and Ivy's dad, looking like he definitely had a plan. "I just know that in those woods is a special place that can help show Levi and Ivy the right way to handle these situations. I know because I've seen it before and it helped me when I was their age." "Okay," said Levi and Ivy's mom, sounding a bit skeptical. "You seem to be pretty sure of yourself, and I would love nothing more for the arguing between Levi and Ivy to stop, so I really hope your plan works." Levi and Ivy's mom said goodbye to her kids, and they headed off towards the woods. "Remember, be back for lunch, please," she said, "and stay where you can see the house." "We know, Mom," Levi and Ivy answered together. "Love you." As she disappeared into the house, Levi and Ivy's dad called them over before they left for the woods. "I know you two may not feel like being together right now, but it's very important that you learn how to communicate properly with each other after you make a mistake. said their dad. It's also important to think before making decisions that you know may not be the right thing to do. We get it, Dad, said Levi. Yeah, we know, said Ivy. But at that moment, they didn't know. However, after a very special and magical trip into the woods behind their house, they would soon find all the answers they needed. Bye, kiddos. We'll see you at lunchtime, said their dad as he watched Levi and Ivy head off into the woods. I can't wait to hear all about your adventure and if you learn anything amazing. Levi and Ivy waved goodbye as they walked down the path that connected their backyard to the woods behind their house. They kept to themselves as they walked and just wished it was lunchtime already, that this adventure was over. So, how long do we really need to stay out here? Asked Levi. Until lunchtime, unfortunately, answered Ivy. How about I just test out my new boat in the stream and you just sit and draw? And before you know it, we'll be home. Fine with me, said Levi, about to take a seat on his tree stump. Oh, wait, I better look before I sit down. I wouldn't want to ruin some poor little squirrel's painting that they may have left sitting here. Ha ha, replied Ivy as she turned to put her boat in the water. And it was at that moment when Levi looked down at the tree stump that he saw something. It wasn't a painting by a little squirrel, but it was something unusual. It was shimmery and small, like the things he and Ivy had seen earlier in their backyard. He looked a little closer, and that's when he saw them. 2 tiny fairies glowing and glistening. But unfortunately, trapped under a big leaf. We're so glad you looked before you sat down, said one of the tiny fairies. Do you think you could lift this huge, ginormous, gigantic leaf off of us? The other asked, sounding a bit out of breath. Levi definitely wanted to help the little fairies, but he thought that if he took the leaf, they would fly away before Ivy could see them. I will absolutely help you, but first I have to get my sister, said Levi. Then he ran to the stream, which was close by, and grabbed Ivy. This better be something super cool, said Ivy. I was just about to launch my boat. Then as soon as Ivy saw the 2 tiny fairies under the big leaf, she knew this was cooler than super cool. Wow, I think I saw one of you in my garden at my house just a little while ago, exclaimed Ivy. This is amazing. And I saw one of you while I was playing in my sandbox, added Levi. Yes, you're both right. That was us, said one of the tiny fairies, sounding even more out of breath. But do you think we could continue this very interesting conversation after you remove the huge, enormous, gigantic leaf that's on top of us? Oh, wow, yes, sorry, we can do that, said Levi, quickly removing the leaf. The tiny fairies then breathed a huge sigh of relief and fluttered excitedly around Levi and Ivy. Oh, thank you so much, said one of the tiny fairies. We were waiting for you and must have dozed off. And then before we knew it, we woke up under that giant leaf blanket and we couldn't move, added the other tiny fairy. Wait a minute, did you just say you were waiting for us? Asked Ivy. And who exactly are you? Oh, yes, how rude of us, said one of the tiny fairies. My name is Uh-oh. And my name is Oh-no, added the other tiny fairy. We live in a very special place in these woods. It's called Mistake Meadow, said Uh-oh. It's just past the stream around the bend, said Oh-no. And you, of course, are Levi and Ivy. Correct, said Ivy. So now that we know your names, can you please tell us why you were waiting for us? Then Uh-oh and Oh-no went on to tell Levi and Ivy that their job is to help people recognize their mistakes, understand consequences, and learn how to make up with others. Consequences? That word has been coming up a lot today, said Levi. How did you know Levi and I have been fighting and needed help with all that stuff you just mentioned? Added Ivy. It's our job, said Uh-oh. We live in Mistake Meadow until someone needs our help. Then once we can help them, then we go and live in the fairy realm, a magical, mystical place just beyond the moon, added Oh-no. It's beautiful, and we get to live there if we help you to. Well, I'm sorry to say that you may not get there today, said Levi. Ivy just can't seem to learn how to say she's sorry. Me? Shouted Ivy. Levi is the one who'll keep you here in the woods because he doesn't care about anyone's feelings but his own. Wow. It looks like we have a lot of work ahead of us, said Uh-oh to Oh-no. But just how much work, They would soon find out. Hey, friends, stick around for part 2 of the Uh-ohs and the Oh-nos coming soon. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun, Lively Lewis story with you.